Hi, I'm Ryan,
I'm Jeff, and we're from Noble Cycling.
and today we're going to talk to you about the essentials of fat biking.
Yeah, no, no, yeah, no, no, yeah, no, no,
The first thing we're going to talk about is tire pressure. Tire pressure is key, especially with the snow being such, it can be really firm, it can be really soft. Ideal pressures for a fat bike are anywhere from usually 0.5 when the snow is extremely soft, all the way up to 7 psi if it's really firm. So we're going to go over how you actually determine what pressure is ideal. Here is actually one of the gauges that we use. We use a low pressure gauge. This will go all the way up to 15 psi. Usually a good rule of thumb is when in doubt, let air out. So we'll go ahead and show you kind of what we're looking at. Right now, this tire is actually pretty firm. It's about 4 to 5 psi. So we're going to take some air out. Usually want to take it out in increments of, probably 5 to 10 seconds, just depending on what your traction's like at that point. So we're getting quite a bit more flex in the tire. So now we're probably down to around 3.5. Once you get more familiar with tire pressures and whatnot, you won't need a gauge as much. This is nice to actually know exactly how much you're putting in. The bike will actually ride significantly better. You'll have better float, and the tire will be able to conform to the imperfections in the snow. So if you're going around a corner and it's not even, you'll actually be able to take the corner and it'll be rideable. Whereas if you have too much pressure, it's going to be really hard to actually stay on top of the snow and to keep control of the bike.
So Jeff, we've got two different fat bikes here now. One of them has the suspension on the front, and this one doesn't. Why do you want suspension? Why don't you want suspension?
So with a lot of snow riding, if you're riding like on a service road, you don't really need suspension just because it's pretty smooth. You're just plowing through snow. You get more technical with single track trails, or if you want to ride your fat bike year round, a suspension fork on a fat bike is fantastic. It's actually tuned for the bigger tire. It makes it so you can actually ride your bike year round. It's a lot more fun. It's a lot more versatile. Also, if you ride in the snow and the snow is, let's say, crusty in sections, and so you're actually riding over terrain, it's ideal to have a suspension fork in those conditions just because there's a lot of chatter, it's a lot of unevenness in the snow, and it'll make it so that your hands stay a lot fresher and you'll have significantly better control.
Okay, so Jeff, so the suspension, I understand that. Now, do you get any sort of suspension from these tires? I mean, these are huge and they do flex.
It definitely conforms to the terrain. If you're not riding in snow conditions, you want to have at least 5 psi in your tires just so you don't risk damaging your rim. But in snow conditions, you can go super low. And if you're running your tire, at 6 psi all the way down, you actually have suspension built into that. So you can get away with a rigid fork just like this. But when it gets a little bit more technical or a little bit rougher, you're definitely going to want a shock. And the Lefty is by far the best fat bike suspension out there.
Jeff, we get a lot of questions at the store about what to wear. Talk to us about what you wear.
So I love being clipped in, and so I actually got a boot specifically for being able to be clipped in on the fat bike.
Now, do you have to have a clip-in shoe?
It's not essential. It's nice when you're actually in sub-zero temperatures. Everything above, though, 20 and above, which most conditions here in Utah are like, you could wear a regular mountain bike shoe and just get a neoprene cover. There's booties that actually go over, and they keep your feet plenty warm. And also, you can buy warmers that actually go on the sole of your feet, and they'll keep your feet toasty for 9+ hours.
Now, what if I don't have clip-in shoes and I just want to ride on flats?
Oh, that's totally fine. I would recommend riding in a shoe that has a Vibram outsole because it'll actually stick a lot better to the pedal if it gets wet. But yeah, you're totally fine to wear regular shoes when you go ride.
But using like a standard snow boot, Sorel type boot,
that would
be great.
Yeah, totally fine.
Talk to us about what these things are on the front of the bike here. Never seen these.
So these are called bar mitts. They're super, super warm. It's nice that even down to 0 degrees, I'll just wear the same gloves that I actually wear during the summer on my mountain bike. And the nice thing about that is that it gives you the dexterity so you can actually shift without having a bulky glove and also brake and be able to actually feel the modulation.
You're just wearing,
Yeah, just
Normal
a
gloves.
normal glove.
and you can still shift and brake.
Oh yeah, and it keeps your hands toasty warm. I've actually had my bar mitts down to negative 32 degrees. I
Wow.
wore a thicker glove than this when you go below negative temperatures, but yeah, this glove's excellent all the way down to 0 degrees.
Yeah, I mean, right now the temperature is probably what, 32 degrees, 33 degrees.
Yeah, it's pretty comfortable.
You're just in fingerless gloves. That's impressive. Talk to us about your pants and your shirts.
So I've ridden in temperatures as cold as negative 32 degrees. I did a race just last weekend, and the temperatures were extremely cold. I've never ridden that cold, but I was toasty warm. And what I had is a merino wool base layer made by Icebreaker, and then I had my ski parka from Marmot. I wore a jersey in between those two layers, and then also I wore a pair of bibs and a base layer from Icebreaker on the bottom. But that kept me super warm throughout that whole race. The reason why I wore a jersey is because it actually helps wick the sweat away, because you want to make sure that you don't get too warm. If you're wearing too much clothing, you're actually going to sweat on the inside and it's going to freeze. But if you want to stay warm, merino wool is fantastic to have as a base layer, because when it gets wet, because you will sweat, it actually still insulates and it dries really quick. On your head, I actually love the 45 North. They do balaclavas. This is actually a hat from 45 North. Covers your ears, keeps you super toasty warm, and also dries really fast because it's made out of merino.
So Jeff, the next thing I get asked a lot about at the store is what to drink. Water bottle like this will freeze if it's too cold.
Oh yeah, if you're above 40 degrees, this is actually usually sufficient if you want to ride for an hour, hour and a half. If you go below 40 degrees, you want an insulated bottle. And sometimes what you can actually do is put an insulated cover on the bottle, which will make it, won't freeze. But a good thing to do is, especially if you're going on longer rides, is to wear a Camelback. It's good to actually keep it close to your body. So you put your Camelback on after you put on your base layer, and then you're going to put on your outer parka. Run the hose instead of running it over so it's exposed. It's good to put it actually routed underneath your arm, and put the bite valve in your armpit, and it'll keep it so that it actually doesn't freeze while you're riding.
And give you a nice salty taste too.
Yeah.
Well, Jeff, thanks for coming out today and
Sure thing.
kind of walking us through some of the basics of fat biking. Jeff has written a complete guide to fat biking. It goes over everything from tire pressure to what to wear to snow conditions. It goes in a lot more depth than what we've talked about here. So if you'd like to download that, it's a free download. We'll have the link at the bottom of this video, and just download that and you can really get into the nitty-gritty on how to ride.
Sweet. Awesome.
See you on the trail.